Anybody else? Got anything cool going on the weekend?
That was scrimmage in Iowa.
Scrimmage in Iowa, or Des Moines, Cedar Point, or
Dubuque.
Dubuque.
That's Clark.
Nice. Clark. You said against?
Yeah.
Against Clark, oh, okay. Anybody else? Anything interesting? Any job prospects? Applying for some internships? Anybody get that loan from the bank for their business? Do that presentation for their investors? All right. Just wanted to come up here to talk about some of their objectives. Anybody that hasn't came up here? Volunteers? Anybody figure out what their objective is? Yeah, figure it out.
Kind of instead of doing like an actual restaurant, I was like talking with like my dad and my neighbor about like, they wanna make it into an actual business and stuff, so like,
Yeah.
I was talking with them over the past couple days and they said they're kinda like leaning more towards the idea of a food truck to start up. That way you can like go to different places and see kind of where the most demand is at before you get the self-standing structure. So kind of just the goal is kind of get the food truck and get that up and running and like up to code and like get permits and licensing and stuff like that.
Okay, so a change in the entire strategy of
Yeah.
what you're gonna do. What's the consequences, do you think, not doing A, but doing B? You know, or not doing B, doing A?
I think kind of like a consequence of not doing the restaurant and doing the food truck is that you're gonna not have like a loyal customer base unless you're repeating going to that location. You can't build that kind of group environment, like that type of, like I said, yeah, that environment. So it's kind of just gonna be, you're just kind of testing out the demand, which is what a benefit to it is. That way, like, you can see, alright, so say like this area we thought was gonna be really popular, but no one came to it. However, the area that we didn't think was gonna be popular, like, we had the most sales there. So that way you kind of test the waters and see where you're gonna have the most success at.
So maybe your emphasis is location?
Yeah.
You're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So seeking out demand for particular locations.
Yeah,
as a
and then go
test
from there.
case.
I think that's kind of, that's where like focusing more on kind of that catering too, and like, you would have people like, you have the food truck coming out to parties and stuff
Yeah.
like that too.
Yeah, I mean, food trucks are big. I mean, I
Mhm.
think it's a wonderful idea.
Like, you like food truck like fairs and stuff too.
Yeah, and you wanna keep, I mean, you wanna keep the initial cost low, right?
Yeah.
Sort of contracting the lease out for space and
Mhm.
commitment. Alright, yeah, I like that one, that's, seems pretty, like you're emphasizing on something specific. Who else? Who's thought about their objective? What do they wanna focus on with their project? Yes.
Similar to Ryan, I've decided I wanna start with pop-ups in different locations, to gauge less location and more interest in like how much people are willing to pay for the specific product. Yeah, we just wanna gauge interest and find our specific like niche or target market, by doing pop-ups in different places, and then to get hype, our main like marketing will be coming from like influencers coming and doing like blogs about it and stuff like that, so we wanna get hype surrounding it before we go into like a brick and mortar permanent location.
So what's the consequence you think for you guys by not having sort of like a permanent physical presence in one of the bars, whatever, versus just popping them?
Well, I think since it's so temporary, there's always a risk that people won't hear about it, and so they won't come in time by the time that we're gone. And then people might get really excited about it, and then
Yeah.
will leave, and so then we might lose some customers because we chose a different permanent location after the pop-ups, or because we just moved to a different location.
Okay, so too much variability in location can lead to ideas, right? Because you don't have a permanent fixture. Now you gotta advertise where you're gonna be, at what time, all these different things. And like, well, are these people gonna be really committed to coming back? You know, we won't be here, but we'll possibly have a physical location in the future. Because really, think about it, like, what makes return customers is consistency, right? Just like a relationship, or what makes a relationship long is consistency. Doing things over and over and over again, right? So, if you don't see the things frequently, out of sight, out of mind, even if it's great, you know, it's like a phenomenal idea, phenomenal whatever. So it's something to think about, right? So think about maybe what sort of constraints you're kind of placing on it by doing so. And it may be great, yeah, that might be the better way of doing it now based on resources, you know, so you gotta think of like, resources aren't an issue, therefore I wanna still commit and do the idea, so the only way to do it is this. Which we're learning, right? You know, switching up your process based on some new challenges, right? Like the challenge, I don't have enough money to do that, so what do I do as an alternative to switch that? And then once you do that, what do I do now, right? How do I change now? What do I change? All right, excellent. Who else? Who else kind of knows what they want to focus on as their objective? Yeah.
I don't know if this counts exactly, because it's kind of, I don't wanna say testing, but it's like, I'd like to make sure that the site for getting tutors has everything you would want. I wanna make sure that, you know, we test it, we go through it as if we were customers, and we go, okay, is there a point of communication I would like somewhere that isn't there that we can add, and is there any unnecessary information that maybe makes it more cumbersome to access another option that we could cut out? Or, you know, maybe as a tutor, is there something I'd like to see about potential students that isn't there? Or is there someone that could contact customer service in case of, you know, one mishap or another?
Yeah, so yours is capacity. Like, you wanna make sure the website has a capacity to handle the variability of what the students will be coming to look for. That's, you know, as opposed to maybe competitors, like, they're limited, right? They don't have what I'm gonna have. They only get, you know, 5 things that the student could really reserve to. And you may say, they got 15 things, but also get ways to solve problems, right? Feedback, customer service, pop up, menu, hey, chat, how can I help you? It takes you directly from there. So capacity, you wanna have a broad capacity to service as many students as possible. Okay, that's great. So you gotta think about that and think like, what in terms, what would that, be in terms of cost? Because you're like, well, broad capacity means that it has to be really somebody servicing that area, which means more money. Does more money paying to people servicing that area equals more profit, right? Is that kind of, like you say, will that help drive demand? Will that bring more people over, which will help profit, right? Or, you know, you have to gauge, it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe if demand is the same, then I have to change because get rid of a lot of people who have to service that. So your stuff is more like database, IT, those type of issues, as opposed, as a side to the tutors, right? The tutors are one thing, but your thing is like the whole entire database management system. Okay, cool. I like that. Who else? Who's left out? Anybody not say their objective yet? Just give us a broad idea of what they're thinking. Everybody else? Did you give your objective?
My idea is similar to Corey's, but it's cupcakes. with
Okay.
Shots infused with them.
Alright, cupcakes with shots infused. Where did this idea come from? Where did it come from?
My mom. She works at an airport, so she sees a lot of pop-ups, and she's always thought of it. So it was the first thing that came to my mind when.
There's places that have cupcakes.
No, but she
infused.
sees like places like Sprinkles, and they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
like the ATM and stuff, and
Yeah.
she was like, I would wanna try like a cupcake with a shot.
Okay, we're saying a shot of alcohol or a shot of espresso?
Alcohol. So,
Alcohol.
and it would be like customizable, so you could do like a red velvet with like a shot of like tequila, or you could do chocolate with whiskey.
Right.
But it would also start off as a pop-up, kind of like in airports and malls and stuff.
Alright, so variety of product mix, right, you can mix all the different cupcakes and put out whatever shot, customize. Pop-up, you're saying, thinking of airport? And what would be, you think, the main, like your main challenges would be with that?
The way she explained the idea to me was like the bread would kind of be ready. So I think the biggest challenge would be like knowing how many cupcakes to have ready
Yeah.
for people to order.
So think of Subway, right, you see them coming out bringing the bread, you gotta be ready to service. And then if they don't meet that expectation of amount of people, then that stuff is bad, it's not like you could reuse it. And so she's thinking what, just one kiosk or one stand to start with? Or she's thinking like multiple, like one at
I
a
think
midway, one at a.
starting with one.
Okay. So what would be your main objective, like, what do you think out of all that you would have to focus on in order to make it successful?
I think kind of like how the shots are gonna be infused was kind of like where we disagreed. She thought like an infused like filling, kind of like donuts that are filled with like cream, and she wanted like the filling to be infused with shots, but then I was thinking something similar to like the donuts. Have you ever been to Bumble Bar? Where they have like the little shots where you like just squeeze it in.
Okay. Did you look up to see any restrictions?
No.
Okay. Okay. It's not like, I mean, it's definitely new, right? So you say you'd be a first mover in that market. People like new. The thing is with new, sometimes people try it and then it fades. You know what I mean? Like people are like, oh, you gotta try it. And then you try it and then it kind of fades. So how do you stay consistent, right? How do you grow from that? Okay, I think that's pretty good. I like that idea. It's new. It's different. It's gonna make it interesting for you. What about you?
Well, my idea was like, kind of like an automotive shop, but like not a basic one. So like, you get like your maintenance repairs done, but like the main focus is like the audio for like the cars. Like I don't know if
Okay.
you guys have like noticed, but like I grow up in like a Latino community,
Mm-hmm.
so like their interests are like making customizations to your cars, so like they can have like a lot of radio, a lot of speakers,
Yeah.
and compete against cars.
Yeah.
And here in Chicago, I've noticed that there's not really like a business that like people can go to get their cars customized. But like if you go to Florida, if you go to like Michigan, Indiana, you see like businesses already where people take their cars to. So I feel like, well, this is kind of like an idea my dad brought up because like he's in there, like he's competing, he has his own cars, so like he wanted to bring his own business out here and like start the thing around here because we see like a lot of people either they go to him because they know like he knows how to build them, just, like
Yeah.
assemble I guess he calls it the framework that goes inside the car. But like he wants to start his own business, so like it's not just a side job, like he can just do it like legally, like probably like build off potential, like expand the idea.
Yeah.
As you said, like Florida was a big one. I don't think there's one in California. But
Okay, so you're supposed to start, audio installation systems for cars, right? So get you some sounds, basically,
Yeah.
right? Okay, now there's a few, right? We know there's, particular neighborhoods, right? Demographics, like
yeah,
you're saying.
I didn't want to say just Latino, but like that's so far where I've seen it. But like other communities, I've seen like their
Yeah.
interest in it. But like a barrier, I see like going into those communities. Like
Yeah.
not everybody likes the loud music. Not everybody wants it.
Never like so. So you say, hey, there's some cultural barriers here,
Yeah.
because it's more of an ethnic.
Yeah.
You could maybe assert there's maybe more of an ethnic thing to do that. And then you would say, well, what are the changes in styles and habits and behavior for people? Like, are people doing that as much as they did in the 90s?
Yeah, that's why I thought it was a
2000s.
decent idea. Cause like growing up, I never really saw people like, oh yeah, I got this all these systems in my
Yeah.
car. And like now, like I walk down the street and I have people talking about it, like, oh, I have this in my car, this in my car.
and I think that's great, because yours is, customizable, right?
Yeah, it's like you're appealing to their interests, you know, like people want
Yeah.
this done, cause they can go to competitions and compete and like show off their cars, so they wanna show off what ideas they're able to generate from this their vehicle.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think the major challenges is besides like cultural?
Major challenge, I looked at it was like another pandemic, like for the common, like people are tight with money, like you're not gonna see people going to spend money like on their hobbies and stuff like that. Or like when the winter time comes, like not a lot of competitions are going, like even though people are like preparing for the summer, there's still not a lot of people who like spending money in the winter and stuff. Which is why it's not like the shop can be like a maintenance shop, like a Jiffy Lube, like people can also go get like their simple repairs and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's not, is it on the spot? Or is it like,
It most likely.
tell me what you want, you come back when, you know, when we're
Yeah.
done with the work, you come back.
Like
and-
for starters, we probably do like on the spot, like simple like little changes, you know, like any like maintenance repairs, but like potentially like going further into like other like type of body shop.
Yeah.
Like I know like building off into like this type of work, like you can do like paint jobs, you can do like, oh yeah, I want this done to my car to fit more room in there, this and that. Like, you have to extract, put stuff in.
Great, so you say, hey, there's opportunity to increase scope, which means the product, different products to service people as we grow. Right, and we'll talk about kind of stuff that maybe can apply, but really, I think the main challenges with any of that stuff, say even just regular auto body shops, is variability. You don't know how much any particular client's thing is gonna be, but you still gotta have people on hand to provide the service, you still gotta pay the rent, you still gotta operate the business. And so that variability may cause issue in, say, revenue stream, cash flows, to say, how do we make good assumptions to predict what we'll be making next month, next year, 5 years down the road? Which is challenging, that's why you don't see many auto body shops, with multiple locations, right? They're just typically in one neighborhood, it's one shop, family owned, people trust them, but they're not located all over the place. So extremely difficult just to keep that place going. But what you're talking about is something different. It's like, well, we're gonna add some more customizable features while we service the vehicle.
Yeah, as of lately, I've seen that like growing to like as I said, like growing up, I never seen this, but like now it's like people drive all the way to Florida with their cars just to compete. People go all the way to Michigan.
Yeah.
It's like everybody from the United States, like whoever, like, so like, cause there's people like, oh, he's the best from Chicago, he's the best from Indiana, and they'll go all the way over there just to compete with
To do it.
Yeah.
So you're gravitating towards particular culture of people who have that interest.
Well, I've seen like
Go
more
to market.
cultures also like incorporate themselves. Like it started off just me like seeing Hispanic, but like I've seen like the African American community
Yeah.
come in, like the African American community, all that stuff.
Okay.
Like, I feel like it's something that's potentially.
It has a lot of growth.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like it. Who else? Anybody else? Who hasn't spoke about their objective? Is that everybody? Alright. Well, we're gonna get into constraint management, which I think is a little bit more interesting than some of the previous topics we talked about. Alright, so constraints, right? Constraints particularly deal with flow. How does a process flow? Right? So say for example, how would a drive-through restaurant increase the rate of flow to service all the customers that's gonna come through? Right, dealing with increases in demand, Portillo's, right? Or Chick-fil-A. What are some of the measures they can use or actions they could take to increase the rate of flow, to make the process more efficient, so that people aren't waiting for the food, don't get their food on time? What are some of the things you could do? Yes.
Probably an additional order lane, like at some McDonald's and Chick-fil-A locations.
So you're saying that people were walking up with the take your order situation?
But more like what, like two, like additional kiosks for ordering your meal.
Oh, okay, so like different windows, maybe, right? Okay, you pay here, you pick up your food here.
But also kind of like, when you speak into the little, machine, that can use the employee, I've seen some locations, some places have like multiple lanes, so you don't have to just order one place, you can order at multiple places before you head, further down the line.
Okay, cool. That's one way, yeah. What other ways, what other measures, can a business take in order to keep that flow going and make it more efficient? Yes?
Hire more cooks and just people that are making the orders.
Okay, so use more of your resources, which is people, right? Hire more people, all right, more people, okay. What else? Yes?
Mobile orders.
Yeah, absolutely. You can say, hey, McDonald's now has, you know, the McDonald's app so that you can order ahead of time, right? We've already prepared this meal for you to pick up before you even drove up here. Now you just grab and go. And now because of COVID, we see this kind of everywhere, right? I mean, you go to Chipotle and all the orders that we grab and go. Highly efficient. Is there anything else we could think of? Yes.
Well, I know it's probably like extra, like, it's not like they roll out TV and like the roller skates, every time you go to roller skates, it's people like, you fill up and just walk into the spot, you go to people parking.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if that's your type of business and you're like, hey, we gotta get to the car quicker, and you look the data, it increases, how quickly we get there, we take the order. Absolutely. If you're that type of restaurant, right? You become sort of an older theme, 1950s style restaurant, and that's your, kind of gig. Anything else? Remember, it's limited to the creativity of the company. You can think of a million ways on like, how do we, create high flow? How do we make this better? Because some places you go, you're like, man, this is ridiculous. You wait 20, 30 minutes. Portillo's, some of them, not all of them. Portillo's pretty good. But some nights, you know, when they're short-handed, short-staffed, or whatever, and you're like, man, they didn't take into account for this to happen. Mr. Man, they didn't have any backup, right? When we talk about like the capacity planning, they didn't have any backup reserves for when this demand would increase? Yes?
I was gonna say, I haven't seen any like company do this, but like how we have mobile orders where you like order ahead of time and you just go in and pick it up and leave. You could have like mobile orders for like dine in. So let's say you place an order and then they make the food and then they put it, like you reserve a table basically, and they put it on a table, you walk in, you eat, and then you can just leave. There's no like waiting in line and then having a long line to make your order and then wait for your order and then pick a table.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they probably will at some point, right? Why do you think they haven't done that? Has there been like a demand issue for people? Do you think there's people haven't been wanting to do that?
I mean, it
Or
could
is it
be-
something that's not been thought of?
I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody's thought of it. I just think people, like, especially with the pandemic, are like, not as many people are dining in, maybe, or maybe some people will complain about their food being cold if, like, they make the food too quickly and then the person doesn't get there on time. So, different things, but.
Yeah. Maybe there's assumption that if they made it to, you know, mobile orders, really to go, they have a time constraint themselves, right? Okay, interesting. Let's think, let's think of another service operation, bank. Chase Bank needs more people, or Bank of America needs more people to open up new accounts. How would they increase the rate at which they get people to open up more accounts efficiently, effectively, quickly? Yes.
Probably special accounts with like benefits, like when I opened up my checking account, I was actually offered, to issue the college student version, which was a bit more, I guess, somewhat forgiving than the regular, checking account, because you didn't have to have as much of like a higher minimum, amount of money in your account.
Yeah.
And,
You get charged a less service fee per month.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the guy at the bank actually told me that it would eventually convert into a, regular account after college, but sometime after, so not instantly.
Like rolled over into it. Okay, excellent. Promotions, right? You get the thing in the mail, save $500 or get $50 if you open an account today, right? So you say, hey, we wanna increase the rate at which we open up accounts. That's one way. You say good marketing, promotions. What else? Yes?
You could hire offer incentives like more cash back, more travel miles when you make purchases at certain locations. I know some like credit cards do that, but like, if you offer like a slight percentage higher, and that could maybe make like the person that's really focused on that or really makes use of that more keen on opening with your bank, opening with your bank.
Okay, another promotion. People wanna come in and open up accounts physically. What are some ways that you increase the rate of outlet? Online. Online waiting for people to come open up accounts and take care of all types of situations. Yes.
I think if like you wanna experience that type, like actually talking with the banker and like getting like everyone's opinion, like you can do like Zoom type calls like over online. That way they still get that type of like interaction, that face-to-face type thing, but it's not actually in person. So you can set up like doing your accounts online.
Yeah.
It's like it's features like Zoom or Skype, Teams, stuff like that.
Okay, so if you need to talk to someone, ask questions, you could have, you know, use the internet in some way to do that. You could have just the application online, right? You say we don't have to wait. We've already saw your proof for a new account before you came in here to fill out a piece of paper and waited. So now you're holding up the line for everybody else. Right? What are some other ways? Yes.
Kind of going off of what you just said right now, I know like car dealerships have a pre-approval, like before you go to the dealership and ask for a loan for a car, you can fill out a financing for a car option. You can fill out like a form online and then they'll check you and then they'll either approve you before you get there or they won't approve you. You could kind of have like, basically you fill out all the information and then all you do at the bank, you just kind of go and sign like all the important documents.
Yeah, think about that, right? Carvana, what's the other one? What's the other one that's changed the game with cars? Right, you got Carvana, what's the other one everybody goes to go buy a car nowadays? Where they go deliver the car to your house and, you know, do all that stuff. Actually, I forgot the name. It's on the tip of my tongue. No, it's the other one.
Is it Brew?
No, it's the major one. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Isn't Carvana going out of business though?
They're having some issues, right? But think about it. So Carvana is like, hey, get your pre-approval, select your car already, right? We can actually deliver it to your house. We've increased this process and made it highly efficient instead of, I gotta go to the dealership, I'm gonna sit here for an hour, then I'm gonna fill out the paperwork. Then they're gonna see if I'm approved, how much I'm approved for. Now what kind of car can I get with, what I'm actually, you know what I'm saying? Long, and now you got a whole line of people waiting to get in, now you lost money, right? Because you don't have enough people to take care of this. So, hey, make it more efficient, do everything online, and we'll deliver to your house. You don't have to come get it here. And then you think about that, people see that as an incentive, like, man, that's an easy process. I'm paying for convenience and efficiency. In which case we will, because a lot of us don't have time in our lives to do a lot of things, right?
What's CarMax? CarMax?
CarMax, yeah, there you go. CarMax and Carvana. Yeah, other ways with the bank, hire more people on the lines to take care, but think of this, make people, cross training. So not only can tellers only handle basic teller operations, they also are trained to kind of handle complex things, if they need to. That's kind of that backup reserve planning that we talked about. Cross-train them to handle some more complicated things that you need like a personal banker to do. Several different ways. This is only limited to the creativity of the company. Like you could look at the pie, but you could slice it a million different ways, right? Apple does that. iPhone looks exactly the same. It's just different names, different marketing, so-called better camera, which I complain about, cause Apple's getting, like, the best camera they have is like the iPhone 11 or something. Like, the now, new ones are, too automated. They use too much of automated processing instead of actual lens filter process. So it's kinda gimmicky now, at this point, I think, and I think that's probably why they're gonna have to switch up the iPhone and come up with something new soon. Like, get rid of iPhone itself and have another phone that's gonna be just something completely new. Alright, so we got the theory of constraints, right? Constraints is a theory, an idea of how we see them and things we can do about them. How to manage bottlenecks in service processes. And identify and manage bottlenecks in manufacturing. Product mix decisions, right? How to do that with constraints such as this gentleman's with the, different products, or with cupcake situation, right? You have product mix, you have different alcohols you can use, mix with different cupcakes. And describe how to manage constraints in line processes and balance assembly lines. So a constraint is any factor that limits the performance of the system and restrict its output. When we say output equals money, the more you're able to get out, the more revenue you will have, potentially more profit, the more people you're able to serve. And a bottleneck is a capacity constraint resource whose available capacity limits the organization's ability to meet the product volume, mix, or demand fluctuation required by the marketplace. Alright, so here's some operational measures. We got inventory, throughput, operating expense, and utilization. Right, so here's the theory of constraints view on inventory. All the money invested in the system and purchasing things that it intends to sell. Right, so here's the relationship to the financial measures, right? A decrease in inventory leads to an increase in net profit, return on investment, and cash flow, right? So we're looking at a Walmart or other large box retailers, their thing is to have limited amount of inventory to get rid of. Anything kept behind, you're probably gonna have to sell it back to somebody, put it in clearance, put it on sale, hence you've lost money, right? So their major objective, even when with clothing stores, is to have little to no inventory, get rid of inventory. You wanna have it available for demand, but their thing is to get rid of the inventory, right? So you're not able to lose money. And then throughput, that's the rate at which a system generates money through sales. Here's the relationship to financial measures. An increase in throughput leads to an increase in net profit, ROI, and cash flow. Which is say, the more you're able to generate efficiency in the system, the more money you'll have at the end of the day. Right, now, operating expense is all the money a system spends to turn inventory into throughput, and a decrease in operating expenses lead to an increase in net profit, ROI, and cash flow. So the more efficient you get, the less money it costs to operate the business. Over time, you want to increase, well, you want to decrease operating expense. So think even for my situation with having buildings, you're like, well, how do you decrease operating expenses? One way to do them, I don't manage any of my buildings. Anybody who does, I think, loses a ton of money, right? I got all management companies. They typically take 10%, right? All the rent, and they take care of everything. They do it better than I could do it, right? This is what they do. Not everybody does everything great. So basically, I'm saving money and probably getting more efficient returns by letting someone who does something great do it than trying to do it myself or create a new company, right? A property management company myself to do it. Wouldn't make sense. Right? So when it comes to owning properties, same goes for hotels. So my wife used to work for Hyatt. They had a really big job there. And, the Hyatt, for the most part, don't own those buildings. They lease those buildings from the owner, they're just on contract, right? Marriott too, a lot of those hotel chains. You think that they physically own the building, they say, no, this doesn't make financial sense. Why do we need to pay all this money to try to own this structure? And they also outsource the people that work there. So realistically, they say, we don't necessarily hire individuals to work for us. They're a third-party organization that does all the stuff within the hotel, whether it's cleaning, right, the cleaning services, cooking services, all the stuff in these hotels, that we outsource with a company that only focuses on that. And then we bring them in, and what do we have? We just have leaders in management. The really high Marriott, Best Western, all these big ones, that say, hey, we're more of a hotel management company. You see a hotel brand, you see the name, but we really pull out from different companies to get the final product efficient. Right? The same goes for Trump, all these other hotel chains. They outsource. And they found that it's way more efficient than say, like, we're just one big organization, we hire a bunch of people, we train a bunch of people to do that. No, it's expensive. It's expensive to train people. Do you wanna be paying health insurance for these people, dental, vision, college education funding, all this different stuff? No, very, very expensive. And that's how you keep those operate expensive low, and they're very predictable. So you like, if you're paying a company, you pay them a set amount. Now you got a fixed cost. You know what I mean? You have a good idea of what it's gonna cost you. If you did it yourself, that number would change all the time. You just individually hired all these people, you gotta fire some people, you gotta do this. No. Let another company do it. You just sit back and you're just more the management of something. But that's the think of, well, for any of you guys, like, even for my company, I don't do anything anymore. I used to do a lot, right? So I don't get any phone calls or whatever, I just get it from one person. That's the person who runs my organization, right? Person I trust. But I already had in my vision, I didn't want to do all this work, right? But I had to do all the work at the beginning. So I did a lot of hard work. But I already had the structure to say, one day I will have people to manage what I've set in process on how to do it. So it's about teaching people the process, and they could just replicate it over and over. You don't have to do anything no more, right? Just get your, you own the company, you get your percentage or whatever, and that's it. At the end of the day, I'd much rather teach and travel, go around the world and lecture and, do cool stuff that I like to do, right? So think of that as a long-term goal. Like your long-term goal is like, yeah, you want to do the job and create the great idea, which is phenomenal, but eventually you're gonna say, life will change and you don't want to have to work on minute details every day, thinking of the stress of a job or a project. But think of like Vince McMahon, he's more of just a figurehead and a manager, right? Looking at that. Thousands of people actually do the work, right? Camera people sequencing. You go back, you sometimes see the backstage, you see, he'll be back there sitting. It's like a whole production of people, you know what I'm saying? So in some way you become more of a director on the movie set. Like, everybody knows their role. I don't do anything, I just say action, go, right? Stop. But there's something to keep in mind long-term for, with these ideas you have, eventually, how you do them is utilizing people smarter than you in certain areas of the business and the marketplace, but bringing all together. So eventually, like if you're a CEO, you just know how to bring things together. You may know absolutely nothing about what's going on in research and development, and you may not know any of that stuff, right? People praise Elon because they feel like, he knows the engineering and the science. But the actual, like, other CEOs are just people who know how to bring things together to make it work. That's it, right? And they know how to make a good decision. So something to keep in mind. And utilization, the degree to which equipment, space, or workforce is currently being used. It is measured as the ratio of average output to maximum capacity expressed as a percentage. So here, relationship to financial measures, an increase in utilization at the bottleneck leads to an increase in net profit, return on investment, and cash flow. So basically, your resources that you have, how you use them when you have constraints will determine how much money you will make during those constraints, or how much money you lose. Right? You say, hey, you know, because of this demand, we weren't able to service 30% of the people that came here to buy something. Now we've lost money. Money that was potentially would have been given to you is a loss, right? Because you would have had the money, had you not had those constraints. Right, you never wanna be at a company and say, hey, we can't do that job, we're too backed up. Like, what? Like, you're missing out on money because you're too backed up? You're like, this is not officially operated, this operation is not efficient, that you got going on. You should never be able to turn a customer down in any capacity. So think of cupcakes, right? Let's talk about our cupcakes with alcohol. Well, you have to think of, all right, if we sell it all, what do we do? How do we plan for it if we sold it all? But then now you get 50 people waiting to buy it, like, you don't have any more. It's a lot of money to say no to, right? So that planning would be like, hey, you know what? We're also gonna need a van stashed with some materials or a space somewhere. There'll be a space anywhere. Someone could say, hey, you know what? Close to this location, even though we just got a kiosk, we rented out a storage space for $79 a month, $100 a month. We keep those extra supplies 5 minutes away. So there we go, come back. So we know we're getting low, we send somebody out and they get here before. So that's a process too. It's like, once again, it's only limited to your creativity. Like, yeah, we just rent a storage space out of this 5 minutes away. And I see that all the time. I collect artworks, I got like 10 storage units. And so, I see a lot of people operating their businesses out of these storage places, like resale shops, you know? They got their whole like extra inventory there. And then they bring the stuff that hasn't sold and they put it back in there and they'll sell it on eBay. It's like, we've already worked out some alternative measures today. Things that don't sell, we need a new medium or channel to sell it, platform to sell it, right? So they've already thought about this. So this, like, just kind of where it's only limited to how creative you're thinking, like, you know. So efficiency is extremely important, right? All right, so the focus should be on balancing flow, not balancing capacity. So you're really only concerned here with the flow of how things move so that you're able to maximize the throughput. An hour loss at a bottleneck or constrained resource is an hour loss for the whole system. So think about this. If you're at the Portillo's or the Chick-fil-A or the McDonald's and one particular area fails or takes a long time, let's say the machines go down in one area, you've disrupted the whole entire system. It's not that you just disrupted one part. You're gonna have a whole disruption, right? So you lost an hour for just one little area. Let's say the machines went down, now you've lost an hour for the whole system. But the whole system has failed for an hour because that was a critical component to getting things done. Inventory is needed only in front of bottlenecks to prevent them from sitting idle in front of assembly and shipping points to protect customers' schedule. So we talked about who worked at Amazon? You worked at Amazon, right? So like when you see some of like the bottlenecks that happen, like maybe certain times where things get really backed up or something happened along the process, what were some of the like changes that management made or how did they handle it?
Yeah, so when I was in the trucks, oftentimes when we would be going slower, they'd tell us to pick up the rate in which we were throwing the products on the line. So oftentimes that looked like just people literally throwing packages onto the conveyor belt, which would, because we had line A, B, C,
Yeah.
D, and each package had to go with the corresponding lane letter.
Mhm.
So people were, when management would tell us to hurry up, oftentimes we would just throw the packages onto the line and then, you know, we'd have a package that's supposed to be in line B, end up in line E, then we have to go through the whole process again and
Okay.
everything.
So think about that. So what he's saying is that they increased, the rate at which they threw the packages on the thing, but that also increased the amount of errors made. And so maybe they made a predetermination to be like, even though we make X amount of errors in this process, overall, maybe we're still getting out 5% increase at the total end of it. So they maybe like it's worth it, like just bring more people, we'll worry about the errors later. Yeah, I mean, that stuff definitely would apply to that. I mean, Amazon, you know, one of the largest corporations in the world, so these bottlenecks, I'm pretty sure they use all these techniques, these theories, with Amazon. Alright, work should be released into the system only as frequently as needed by the bottlenecks, which is, bottleneck flow should equal market demand. You don't wanna put too many things towards the bottlenecks, you don't wanna overdo it, because eventually you'll lose money that way too, because you'll be over efficient, I would say. And every capital investment must be viewed from the perspective of global impact on overall throughput, inventory, and operating expense. Alright, so theory constraints is identifying system bottlenecks, exploiting the bottlenecks, so we're saying, hey, things are gonna, get tight, how do we identify when they get tight? What do we do, what are the things we exploit when they do get tight? And subordinate all other decisions to step 2, and elevate the bottlenecks and do not let inertia set in. Alright, so throughput time is total elapsed time from start to finish of a job or customer being processed at one or more work centers. So you can calculate that, and they do that at the drive-throughs. They calculate the amount of time it takes one person to pull up in the drive-through versus when they drive off with their product, right? And therefore, we could measure to see how we're, how efficient our throughput is operating from day to day, month to month, week to week, year to year, right? Or even different parts of the day when there's different demands. All right, we'll come back to these examples on Monday. The cases, so I haven't picked a case yet for you guys to work on, but I'll pick one maybe sometime over the weekend, and then I'll upload it and put an announcement on Blackboard, and they'll be due maybe next Sunday. So we have a whole week to work on. We really only got 2 cases, I think. Yeah, week 4 was one, and week 12. I'll figure out a case. All right, have a good weekend.